This is more like it. Another Tuesday after an Arizona Cardinals win, 24 hours removed. Bo and I have taken our breath. We'll discuss who do the Cardinals resign next year? Are the Rams that bad? And what does Chase Edmonds' injury prognosis mean for the rest of the season for the Cardinals in the running back room? Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. Let's go!
You are Locked on Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. Follow him at Bob Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Thank you for making Locked on Cardinals your first listen every day, free and available on all platforms. That's how we roll. You get live reads, you get GetUpside, you get Built Bar, you get Bet Online, but you get free content. Everybody wins. Follow the podcast at Locked on AC Cards. Thank you to everybody, first and foremost, for the engagement over the weekend on Twitter. That's the most fun that Bo and I have. You know, it's engaging with people on YouTube. It's engaging with people on Twitter, because if it weren't for all of you, you know, we wouldn't be doing this, and the Locked On Podcast Network wouldn't exist. So thank you. And it was pretty much a nice little Sunday all around for the Arizona Cardinals. Not only getting a W, but other teams with 1 losses all faltering. And it was a perfect setup for the Cardinals pivoting away from their Thursday night debaucherous loss to Green Bay, with the miscue at the end of the game. So, Bo, Sunday couldn't have gone any better, right? I mean, I feel like that was, except for injuries with Chase Edmonds, which we'll talk about, but just win-loss wise across the landscape of the NFC in the playoff picture, perfect.
Yeah, and the teams that were, neck and neck with the Arizona Cardinals, they showed their behind. They showed blueprints on how they're very susceptible to losses. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys, when you shut down that offense, they really don't have the ability. There's a very slim path to victory for Dallas when they're not scoring 30-plus points a game. When you look at the Buffalo Bills, where's their offense been the last couple of weeks? That's an AFC team. Your NFC, I think you and I think a lot of the Cardinals fans, what they saw from the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football was a team that was really just hanging on. Once they lost their guy like Aaron Rodgers, it's a pretty pedestrian group. I still will contest that they're not as deep and as talented as the Arizona Cardinals, just pound for pound, and they showed that a loss. Other big-time losses across the board. The Rams, I mean, that loss to the Tennessee Titans. The Titans, I think, in that game, and your Locked On NFL co-host Tyler Rowland will probably agree with this, that the Titans are trending in the right direction, and they're proving that they're a more well-rounded team than we originally thought without Derrick Henry, and they're not the team that the Arizona Cardinals blew the doors off in week 1. They learned from that, and I think that they are, just trending in the right direction at the right time. 7-2. Sure, they lost to the Jets. Sure, they had a lopsided loss to the Cardinals, but the Cardinals we know are a really good team. What other games did I miss that impact the Cardinals as far as the NFC playoff picture?
That was pretty much it. I mean, the Bucs were on a bye. You know, the Cardinals now have the outright number 1 seed, which is pretty special. We'll talk about if there's a chance that they will not be number 1 in the power rankings across the landscape of all of national media, including the Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On NFL Power Rankings. So takeaways from yesterday, what we've seen, and we'll transition this into the next segment about who the Cardinals need to re-sign above others, is all the offseason moves worked. And that is not an overstatement. That is not, seeing starry-eyed after the Cardinals moved to 8-1 after 9 weeks. It's truly, even AJ Green, people take the loathing hatred of AJ Green out of your mouth with that one miscue after playing 6 weeks with one quarterback. Okay? He played with a different quarterback his whole career. Those things are going to happen. Now, everything has worked. Everything. And we've seen the culture shift maybe a little bit quicker than any of us rationally thought. Like, this is happening a lot faster than we thought it could potentially, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, this is an organization where the waters were murky. We didn't know how this was going to work. All the money that they gave to J.J. Watt, the guys that they brought in over the age of 30, that they were, expecting to play a big role, and they've all done so in their own right. And then as far as the young guys developing and showing up as far as previous draft picks and then guys in this past draft, it's just panning out. Sure, you would like to see a little bit from Zaven Collins, a little bit more from Zaven Collins, but other than that, you really don't have a lot to be upset about as far as how this past offseason went. Steve Keim just might be a top of his class as far as the 2021 offseason goes, and NFL GMs are concerned.
Yeah. I mean, if the Cardinals end up winning 13 games or something, it could sweep across the board. Coach of the year, MVP, and executive of the year. Okay, what Cliff Kingsbury?
Who would you give the edge to in those, those respective awards right now? I mean, outside, as far as coach of the year and executive of the year, does anybody stand out above who the Cardinals have in place?
I don't know. I mean, with Mike Vrabel's always there for me. What he's done with that team, obviously they've shifted now, made playoffs 2 years in a row, AFC Championship game. But I mean, until the Packers lost, Matt LaFleur was there. Brian Gutekunst was there. Mike McCarthy was there. Dak Prescott. But it's true. It's true.
Kellen Moore.
If you're the Cowboys and you get the 1 seed in the NFC, Mike McCarthy's winning coach of the year.
I mean, it's still the NFC least. I mean, it's a pathetic division. I mean, but
it never stopped Tom Brady and Bill Belichick from winning awards when they were in the AFC East.
I mean, I think that also going into Week 9 in the conversation was Zach Taylor. Now I think he's out of it.
That's another one, sure.
An interesting guy that he's not gonna win it at the end of the day. But Arthur Smith, the fact that he has the Atlanta Falcons at 4-4, they've already reached their win total from the previous season. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, it is.
But it's not 8-1. It's not Cliffy baby.
It's not Cliffy baby. And then Sean Payton's always going to be there too. If they can win 10 games without Drew Brees for the first time in almost 2 decades, it's up for consideration. But I mean, Steve Keim's leader in the clubhouse now because it's the most additions to a team that didn't obviously have them the year before. Zaven Collins, we'll see. Rondo Moore has really plateaued. We haven't seen a whole lot from him. The Rodney Hudson trade for the 3rd round pick was great. Marco Wilson is holding. Marco Wilson is the most game in and game out impressive draft pick that they had. I mean, he's pulling his weight. He's not there yet, but he's way further along than we thought he'd be. Way further along than we thought he'd be.
For sure. And apparently he was VJ's guy. I mean, apparently Vance Joseph loved him coming out of Florida. They make the move up with the Ravens into the 4th round and select the tool shed that is Marco Wilson. We saw a couple yellow flags come out for Wilson, but you can't, you can't criticize the kid for playing hard and playing physical. And that's what you need, especially in his spot. When Byron Murphy's balling out as your CB1, and no doubt about it, that doesn't get enough run, but Marco Wilson and Robert Alford, like those other guys that supporting cast, you can't say enough about them as well.
I mean, you need a Jalen Thompson to the Byron Murphy Buda Baker, and you get it in 2 forms because, sometimes there's more corners on the field than there are safeties. And just going back to the game, Jalen Thompson is really, really that guy now.
Yes.
It's every week now. He's really that guy. He's Buda Baker light. He hits as hard as Buda Baker does. He's not squaring people up, but he may be a better open field tackler than Buda Baker is. They're a perfect entity over the top. It's crazy. That was a supplemental draft pick, ladies and gentlemen, out of Washington State. That was a supplemental draft pick.
It's like driving the lane in the NBA when you just got a bunch of like Charles Oakley's down there. And that's the entire defense. Who do opposing offensive players really want to line up against when they're in the open field and they're facing, a guy like Marco Wilson or Byron Murphy? I mean, this is not something that we've seen, from the defensive secondary in a long time because of what P3, how we know he had the Deion Sanders, lack of tackling fuel, and his game was elsewhere, is geared towards somewhere else. But I love the physicality that the defense brings on every level, and it sets the tone. It sets an incredible tone of toughness for this Arizona Cardinals defense.
Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. Follow him at Bob Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Bo put out an interesting tweet earlier, and it kind of puts things into perspective. Who are your favorite children? What children are you going to keep, and which? I don't know. That's a bad example when you pivot it that way. But who are the must re-signs for the players with expiring contracts after this season. We'll dive deep into that next segment. But first, I dove deep into a Built Bar this morning. True story. I don't know if you know this about me, Bo, but I love Thanksgiving. All the good food and, treats and plenty of them, all this stuff. But maybe you want a good tasting dessert, but not so full of calories and sugar. That's the perfect time for Built Bar. Built Bar is the new holiday dessert. Okay. Feast on something delicious and feel good about it. You don't have to tryptophan yourself where you fall asleep in the middle of your meal with all your family members around. One slice of pie is upwards of 300 calories, and that's on the low end. Most Built Bars are only 130 calories and only 4 grams of sugar with plenty of protein. Replace the coconut cream pie with coconut Built Bar, or go for a raspberry Built Bar instead of that raspberry pie. Lots of good flavors to replace any pie. Low calorie, low carb, low fat, high protein, covered in 100% real chocolate. Are you there yet? Are you at built.com yet? Built Bar is a great option for when you're hungry. If Thanksgiving isn't coming soon enough, go to Built Bar and get, eat one or two, share some with your family gatherings. Unless you are Bo, where you should have a safe and with lock and key. So your, better half doesn't ingest all of them. There's nothing like a Built Bar Black Friday. Mark your calendar. Black Friday will be a huge event with all sorts of surprises. Go to built.com. You promo code LOCK15 and you get 15% off your first box. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. All right. Second segment. Follow him at Bob Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Thank you to everybody who subscribed to our YouTube channel, who's told their friends about our YouTube channel. I mean, the numbers are growing every day. It's crazy. It's really fun. This is a really fun part of both of our days. So there's going to be not so fun of a conversation this offseason. Regardless of what happens, Bo put out this tweet earlier, and it's good just putting out a laundry list of players that are going to be on either expiring contracts or where you'd have to franchise tag, something like that. There's going to be options. And it's kind of a grab bag. Names, ages, positions. It's kind of a little bit of everything. So let me run down the list real quick, and then we'll break down each name. Chandler Jones, Christian Kirk, Chase Edmonds, James Conner, AJ Green, Zach Ertz, Max Williams, Dennis Gardeck, Colt McCoy, Robert Alford. Whew. There is a lot of firepower on both sides of the ball in that list. So let's start with the least awkward and then move to the most. How about that?
Okay.
So Robert Alford, he's going to be a lower price point. He's shown that he's a serviceable corner when we haven't seen him for 2 years after being signed 2 years ago. Would you sign Robert Alford back to a team-friendly 1-year deal?
Yeah, I think that there's a bunch of guys, actually all of these guys you consider bringing back if the money makes sense, if it's cap friendly. And Alfred's one of those guys, but is he replaceable? Absolutely. You can find somebody that's going to be available to replace maybe younger. He's 33 right now. So yeah, Robert Alford, but yeah, I'm not going to be upset if they let him walk via free agency. But it's been a nice story to finally see him get on the field, and maybe he gives the Arizona Cardinals a little discount because they believed him, or he could get a bump because he's not making that much money, and it wouldn't break the bank for the Cardinals.
Dennis Gardeck, fan favorite, best sack dance in the NFL.
Yeah.
He's definitely fallen off a cliff this year, productivity wise. He's coming off a major injury, so it might take a few weeks for him to get there. But would you because he hasn't gotten paid yet? Like, I wonder if he goes somewhere, if somebody's going to offer him money to be the third pass rusher or whatever in a different scheme.
Well, I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like, if the Arizona Cardinals' success continues throughout the season, like we think it's going to, and they make a run in this postseason, these players are going to command probably more money than they're going to be worth. Like, their market value goes up a little bit. And guys, and that's the tough thing as far as sustainable success is keeping your players, because other teams are going to want your players at that point. So, all the players that we're mentioning, you would love to bring back. I'll reiterate that. But at the same token, you have to decide, is it worth it to lock them up to the guaranteed dollars? Are you going to go full on 2021 bucks and run it back? We don't really see that in the NFL. Gardeck, what he brings to the table, it's special teams. That's where his money is made. But if it's going to come down to a guy like Gardeck and some of the other guys that we're going to bring up, bigger names like Zach Ertz or Christian Kirk, I think you have to make that decision, or bringing somebody in off the free agent market that's a bigger name can make a bigger impact. I think that Gardeck is one of those guys that, although he's a fan favorite, that you would have to probably say goodbye to.
Yeah, right. And these are the less awkward conversations where if they come back, great. If they don't, that's fine. You're gonna miss him. You know, he's a character, but you'd rather bring back guys with more impact if possible, if the money were somewhere close to the same. Let's just streamline this really quickly. James Conner, AJ Green, Colt McCoy, yes.
Look, I
don't. Are
don't.
you out on AJ Green?
There's one I would seriously consider and prioritize re-signing one of those three guys, and it's Colt McCoy. And it's going to cost a little bit more money. He's only making $1.2 million. You know, his performance on Sunday alone is going to get him a little bit more. I mean, if Andy Dalton's making close to $10 million, you can get a guy. You're going to have to sign Colt McCoy probably upwards of $5+ million for at least 1 year. I think that's a no-brainer. It's such a luxury to have a backup of his caliber to bring back.
But James Conner?
I just think that as far as how the NFL goes now, and I think that smart teams, as a wide receiver to like AJ Green on the outside is something you can find via the draft or via free agency. James Conner as well. You know, is it going to pay off like James Conner 2021 has and AJ Green 2021 has? Probably not, but I think you try to at least, because Chase Edmonds is a guy that's going to be available too. His contract's up. You at least try to draft one running back, and you probably, I mean, we know Steve Keim, he can't help himself. He's going to draft a wide receiver at some point, probably in the second round, like he's done the last couple seasons. You find that outside receiver, you get younger at both those positions because the shelf life for those guys in the NFL, those positions, the running backs, it's not long. And you just kind of say, hey, that was great what we got from James Conner. I just don't think he can duplicate it.
I don't agree with that at all. Like, and it's not like if they lose him, they're going to take a huge step back. I agree with the AJ Green thing, even though it rips my heartstrings because I love AJ Green, and I feel like even if he goes somewhere else, he's going to be able to put up 700 yards and 5 touchdowns and be somebody you can trust on third down when you really need it. I think people are kind of. I was low on the James Conner signing because I thought it was kind of an afterthought. We haven't seen him in a couple of years be actually healthy. It was the first or second game where you saw his giddy up immediately. You're like, oh, sheesh. The dude's got a lot more than we thought. Immediately. You can tell when a guy's lost a step. Look at LeBron. You can tell when people have lost steps and when they don't have that giddy up. James Conner still has it. He's never been an RB1 or the half of an RB1 backfield. And I feel like with that moving forward, he's only 26. I would happily give him 2-year, $9 million, 5.5 guaranteed to stay. Have a no-brainer guy that can be the bruiser. The only problem is that may mean that you're getting rid of Chase Edmonds because he's going to get offered more money than James Conner, obviously, right? Because he's more of the new age back.
I don't know. I mean, James Conner at the end of the day, I mean, if Derrick Henry's going to miss the rest of the season, James Conner could realistically lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns. Yeah. I mean, he's tied for the league lead. He's got 10. He's got 11 total. His agent's going to have a lot of firepower to get him a big deal on the free agent market. But 26, I mean, that's the key age. I mean, we've seen the Arizona Cardinals move off of running backs and that, as they should, because you just see like the chances of him coming back and having the same type of success. It's been they have managed his workload so well. And we're going to see with Chase Edmonds, as the reports are, he could miss 4 to 6 weeks with the high ankle sprain. Mm-hmm. I think you have to continue to manage that workload,
Agreed.
The best way you can.
Well, that's why Eno Benjamin's here.
Yeah, Benjamin, sure, but he's not going to be able to do the same things that Chase Edmonds. You got to maybe hand the ball off a couple more times to Rondell Moore, and then I mean, the Arizona Cardinals quarterbacks have been unbelievable in their completion percentage. Like, it's basically a run. Some of the passes that they run, as far as the Christian Kirk or to Rondell Moore or whoever's in the backfield, I mean, they're completing 74% of their passes. It's unreal. And I bet below, under the line of scrimmage, it's money in the bank. So that's an addition to your run game. They just have to be smart. You can't, like, it was nice to see James Conner get 20+ carries against the Niners on Sunday. That can't happen again.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Can't.
Right.
Because 13, 10 games the last 2 seasons, it's you got to keep him fresh. So Eno Benjamin, the ability to rely on him, I think more carries going forward. But as far as re-signing Connor, like if it makes sense, sure. But I really am going to pound the table this offseason. Draft a guy. Draft a guy. I mean, look at Elijah Mitchell for the Niners. I mean, you can find guy. I mean, that's just one of those positions where you have to stay young. If it's Chase Edmonds and a draft pick, fine. If it's James Conner and a draft pick, I'm here for those.
Okay. I can appreciate that. The Cardinals are the only team in the NFC West that has a first-round pick next year. And I believe they're
What?
one of the only 2 or 3 that have a second-round pick.
They're not going to draft a run. You're
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay.
I'm not saying that directly. I'm just mentioning that they have options. They also have a second-round pick. I know they're not going to draft a running back in the first round. You know what? We're just going to go along. Let's just keep going. So,
yeah.
Christian Kirk and Chase Edmonds are 2 that are going to be grouped together. They've always been grouped together. They're guys that haven't always taken that leap, but we've seen what the mountaintop looks like, and it's sexy as hell when we can see the output that they're like. Chase Edmonds in space is magic. Christian Kirk is a good route runner. He can take the roof off a defense. We just haven't seen it with any sort of game in, game out way. And my vocabulary is completely escaping me. One or the other. Yeah. One or the other. Bo Brack. Chase Edmonds, Christian Kirk.
Christian Kirk, I think, is probably my top priority to re-sign on anybody.
Really?
I mean, I think Sunday was example numero uno is what you use.
That's number one in Spanish. I don't know if you knew that.
Thank you. Your English vocabulary terrible, but you know Spanish. Oh, he's a fluent speaker, everybody. All of us were sophomore year in high school.
Yeah.
Christian Kirk, his versatility that he's showing, and then how he's thriving for Christian Kirk in his new role with this team. Like, I know it's not like crazy numbers, but what he was able to do with the absence of Kyler Murray, with the absence of AJ Green, the pass that he threw. I mean, he dropped a dime. The pass that he threw in that game to Antoine Wesley. I think Christian Kirk at 24 years old, he's probably going to command the most money out of anybody. Maybe outside Chandler Jones might command the most money, probably. But, I think Christian Kirk is the guy who you can rely that his production is not going to drop off at his age, and he's only getting better and better in this offense.
So let's hit it. Chandler Jones. He signed a 5-year, $82 million contract with $51 million guaranteed. Okay. He's going to be unrestricted free agent next year. He's made, according to our friends at Spot Track, he has made. Hang on. So he's 31 years old. He's obviously going to be 32 next. My math is on point. He has made, according to Spot Track, $98 million in his career.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see him? This is a 2-part question. 3-part question. 1, would you think about franchise tagging him, which is probably the least likely of all of them? 2, would you give him a J.J. Watt deal, 2 for $40 with 24 guaranteed, or do you let him walk?
See ya.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you were asking me this after week 1, I'm like, oh my God, you got to get this guy re-signed. And
give him $100 million. Yeah.
Yeah. Thankfully, there were 16 more games, and we saw his first sack since week 1 in week 9. I mean, I know that he missed a couple games because of positive tests, but it's just, if he's going to command a ton of guaranteed dollars, it's just a different case than J.J. Watt. I think J.J. Watt does a lot more and impacts the game more than getting big sacks than Chandler Jones does. His rush defense is way better. Chandler Jones is pretty actually bad against the rush. I just think that it just doesn't make sense unless there is a sweetheart deal. And I don't think you're going to get one with Chandler Jones. I think it's going to be very similar and continue to be very similar to P3, Patrick Peterson, Petty Patrick Peterson.
I mean, at least Chandler Jones isn't Patrick Peterson. Like he's shown a lot more recently when he's played, but his ego's not the same.
Yeah.
He's not like it's
do you want to deal though with more cryptic tweets? Do you want to deal with another
for us for sure?
Yeah, it's for us it's great content. Yeah.
It's great content. No, like would he take a sweetheart? Would he take a hometown discount?
I think he could. There's a very low chance, but I think he could surprise a lot of people for sure.
Yeah. I mean, especially if they run so say they make a deep run. Well, because here's the thing now. This is something we're going so long. Sorry, David Locke. Here is the thing, though, that we've never experienced with Chandler Jones is he's going to have FOMO, man. You want to leave this? You want to go get paid one more time and leave a place that you've called your home for the better part of the last decade? You think that that's the right move to get $10 more million? Maybe. Maybe it is. Maybe the Bucks call him and say, hey, you know what? Come win a Super Bowl with us. If he wants to do that with BA, if he wants to go to the Packers or, whatever, it's not an original story, but this is what everybody's been waiting for. Why are you jumping ship now? And that's going to be the toughest part. Like, most of the players that we've mentioned haven't gotten their bag yet.
Right.
I
mean, Jason Pierre-Paul signed 2 years, $25 million after the Super Bowl with the Bucks. I mean,
he's he's 100 years old. He's 100. And he's still performing at a high
32.
level with 8 fingers.
Yeah.
So he was so young. So was that,
Yeah.
so it must have been 2010 with New York. He wasn't there for the first. Was he there for their first one? I don't know. I'm bad with that. I'm bad with years also. Yeah. But I mean, Jason Pierre-Paul, he's been around forever. He's performing at a high level. I would give Chandler Jones that deal. It's the last year before Kyler Murray gets all the money and the Cardinals probably lose everybody.
Let me ask you this. Would you do that deal or would you bring back Hassan Reddick? He signed a 1-year deal with Carolina. Yeah, I honestly think I don't know if Reddick would want to come back after how everything kind of went at the end
Cardinals
of the day.
Can't afford him now.
Yeah, probably not. But
Cardinals can't afford. We have to break. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack.
There's 2 more though. There's 2 more. We'll hit them on the other side.
Yeah, I don't even know what you're talking about. I've blacked out.
The tight end group.
Oh yeah. Tight end group. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack. Max has too many X's in his name. Coming up next, we'll do that, and then we'll put a bow on what should be a formality of the Cardinals being the number 1 in power rankings across the landscape of sports media. But first, Cardinals fans, this is Alex Clancy with an incredible app everyone who buys gas, which is everybody, needs to know about. It's GetUpside. Our listeners are making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. And if you download the GetUpside app right now, you use promo code touchdown, you can get a bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents cash back on your first fill up. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. I mean, prices are getting outrageous. Get cash back using GetUpside. Just again, download the app for free and use the promo code touchdown to get up to 50%. I mean, Bet Online just in my head to get 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. This is very important. I'm going to download the app. I mean, I already have it downloaded. I'm going to utilize it again today because I have to go get gas. The GetUpside app in Apple or Google Play. Download it. Touchdown is the promo. Up to 50 cents per gallon off on your first fill up with the GetUpside app. All right, final segment. This is a 3.5-hour podcast. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. This is important, though. Follow him at Bo Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked on AZ Cards on Twitter. So we've run down pretty much the whole list. The list of names that Bo has mentioned are going to be up for new contracts next year. And there's a couple that are going to be pretty easy to kind of determine. It's going to come down to the money. Robert Alford, Dennis Gardeck, and then Colt McCoy, AJ Green, James Conner's kind of the next tier. We hit Chandler Jones. We hit Christian Kirk and Chase Edmonds. Now it comes down to Zach Ertz and Max Williams. Zach Ertz has Arizona ties.
Mm-hmm.
He and his wife and J.J. Watt's wife are friends, I guess you could say. I mean, they play on the same soccer teams. They've known each other for a long time. It's weird that J.J. and Zach Ertz had never met each other. That was kind of one of a fun little wrinkle into it. And Max Williams has been a fan favorite for a long time. He's a bruiser. He does the job that a lot of people don't want to do. He had this career renaissance with catching the ball before he was put on season-ending IR. 1, 2, or neither, or both?
Yeah, I think you prioritize actually re-signing Max Williams. I know he's coming off the bad knee injury, but what he does, he is the behind-the-scenes guy that kind of makes a lot of this work. And I think that he would be, going forward, 27 years old, as Zach Ertz is going to be 31 this month. I think Max Williams actually is the priority. And then if you can get Zach Ertz back and that continue to have that playmaking, you get him. But as far as the priority, I think it's going to be Max Williams. And I think that the organization probably feels that way.
Right. There's going to be no, real other suitors for Max Williams services. At least ones that, because like Dennis Kardec can surprise some people. He could probably get, especially with his prowess on special teams. You kind of, and this is completely counterintuitive, you kind of want Zach Ertz to play at like a B- level this year. So there's no real suitors. So you can get him on the somewhat cheap, even though his contract, he didn't make a whole lot of money. This was before the Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Mark Andrews situation where they got wide receiver money. He made, I think he got a $40 million cut. Like, he's not, destitute, but he may try to go look for a 1 year, $7 or $8 million deal somewhere else. And he may go to Jacksonville. We have no idea. Like, if he wants to secure it one more time, he may be collateral damage, unfortunately. But what you can look at it as is the Cardinals gave up a late round pick for a top 15 tight end still in the NFL, probably top 12 for a year where they needed more than anything tight end help. So it's a win no matter what. You just like to retain his services.
And can keep in consideration, like Chandler Jones probably will net you a compensatory pick. Zach Ertz, I don't know what the rules are on that because he was traded for Philadelphia. I don't know if that goes out the window. I think they might be in line for one if Ertz walks. And there are a couple other guys that could get you a couple extra draft picks going forward. And at their ages, as far as, the foundation is already set. You have to prioritize a couple big things this offseason. Kyler Murray's his extension. Byron Murphy, you got to extend him soon. There are a couple bigger deals coming up for this Arizona Cardinals organization. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do. I don't envision them being the 2021 Bucs and completely running it back with the exact roster and the guys that helped them get to this. That it's not an indictment on these guys, but this is such a young man's game. And Steve Keim did such a good job this offseason in riding and kind of being in the middle of that line where he's bringing in the veterans and probably be more veterans than any GM would be comfortable bringing in, and then mixing them with the young talent that they have. That's the important part. You have that foundation of youngsters that you can build upon, and you can bring in guys that say, hey, you want to play with Kyler Murray? Yeah, you do. Absolutely. You want to play with DeAndre Hopkins, Budda Baker, Isaiah Simmons? Yeah, you do. That's the pitch, and it's going to be easier to keep these guys, and it's probably going to be easier to bring in more talent. You can't draft a young player at every position that we just brought up of players that could exit. There's just not enough draft picks on the board, so it's going to be interesting to see what Steve Keim does.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really going to be interesting when because they're going to have late picks, and unless there's something catastrophic happens in the first and second round. That's what you call inexpensive labor. Inexpensive employment, which is going to prove to be paramount when Kyler Murray makes $95 million a year. Like, this is something that when you look at Kansas City, they're going to be the cautionary tale. Patrick Mahomes took less money and they've still taken a step back. This could be malaise. A lot of times teams that lose the Super Bowl have a bigger hangover than teams that win it. Ask Cam Newton. His career was never the same after they lost to Denver. But if you're smart, you start thinking today what you're going to do with this roster next year, who you're going to target in the draft, who you want to keep, because Kyler Murray is going to make a boatload of money. And that's usually the kiss of death for teams winning. It is. And it's the weirdest thing that the NFL, teams haven't adapted to it. They haven't adapted to it at all. Unless you're Tom Brady, he got all of his money guaranteed. It looked like it was team friendly. He got every single dollar guaranteed pretty much when he was restructuring. So they were just playing the salary cap like a fiddle, being able to pay other people. And then, as you mentioned, it was a Tom Brady effect where people would come and play there for less, which is what Kyler Murray hopefully inevitably will do, because you want DeAndre Hopkins to retire a Cardinal. You want these guys to retire and play with Kyler in perpetuity. This was a fun one.
Yeah. There's a couple things. Rap Sheet said that Edmonds is likely.
Oh, yeah, we didn't even touch this.
Yeah, we did a little bit. I think that they're set up. You got to manage Connor's carries, obviously keep him on a pitch count, keep him fresh, and he's the guy that's leading the NFL in touchdowns right now. So you keep him where he's.
Do you sign a running back?
That's what I was thinking about. That I don't think you do. I think you really. I don't know what the organization's been dragging their feet on with Eno Benjamin. Maybe it's just been the perfect slow play. obviously everybody wanted to see him earlier, but man, what a debut. Just truck sticking somebody on his way to the end zone. I don't know if I'm naive thinking that, with Connor and Jonathan Ward and Eno Benjamin and Rondell Moore, how you can incorporate him in the rushing attack, Kyler potentially coming back, and how you complete passes at such a high percentage. I think they should be fine for the next couple of weeks without Chase Edmonds. Who's available that you could get to play that role as a pass catching back. I don't know. And then,
yeah, like there's people that are going to peek their ears up seeing Adrian Peterson get picked up.
Thank God he was picked up before this happened.
Oh yeah, because he beat Arizona Cardinal.
Did you also see that Sam Darnold might not play this next week?
Yeah. This is bounces happen. You never wish for injuries. Bounces happen teams' ways that are going on magical runs. I've said it since week 1. Bounces happen. You never wish, but bounces happen. Chris Thompson, an interesting name. That's somebody that I would say, somebody like that, because Chris Thompson. Remember where we were in 2018 week 1? Chris Thompson ate the Cardinals defense lunch with Alex Smith and Adrian Peterson, the aforementioned. We're about 8 minutes over here. Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. We'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll look towards the preview of another game that the Arizona Cardinals should definitely win. Do you sit Kyler Murray? Is Colt McCoy somebody that you can look at as a guy that even if Kyler's almost all the way there, you start him past next week with Seattle, even though Russell Wilson should be coming back? We'll talk about that later down the road. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. Thanks for listening. Make sure to make your second listen Peacock and Williamson. Brian Peacock, I feel bad for those guys today. And Matt Williamson, former scout. He's been around the game for 2 decades. They do a daily podcast, national stories for the NFL. It's awesome. Thank you for making the Cardinals your first listen. Make sure to make Peacock and Williamson your second. We will talk to you tomorrow.